Hello, everybody. Hello again. And today we have a guest that we already know. We have Dr. Suzanne Campbell-Fournel that we already met once time. Hello again, Dr. Suzanne.
Hello, greetings from Montreal.
Yes, and this is a special. Yes. This is a special broadcast. This is a special program that we have today because we are going to have many Zoom interview or lecture with Dr. Suzanne, because Dr. Suzanne prepared a very special program for us. She prepared a program that she entitled Nutrition and Spirit Program, and it is going to be many different presentation, right, Suzanne? Yes. Tell us a little bit about this whole title, because it's very attractive. And what does it mean? What is your full program about? And then we'll jump in today's program.
Well, to say it in a nutshell is really looking at the kind of food that you take into your body and looking at the connection that that food has, making that spiritual connection. Every day we take in food, every day we have the opportunity to make that spiritual connection. And are there things that we are taking in that block, that hurt our cells, that keep us from reaching that higher consciousness that we're all seeking? We're all searching to reach our potential. And sometimes we don't realize we're taking in foods that can impede our journey towards reaching our potential.
So this is a very original approach of nutrition, because I don't know much. I don't know many nutritionists that have this approach. And before I knew you, Dr. Suzanne, I didn't even know that it would be that there would be a connection. And now that I know, I'm just becoming crazy about it, right? So we're going to have many different presentations. Today is an introduction, right? Today,
right. One of our series will focus on the brain and the neurological system, and we'll look at food and mood, how different foods can impact how we feel, and how environmental things can impact how we feel, and how the food we take in can neutralize or help us along on our journey. We're going to look at gut health. There's a lot of new research coming out looking at our intestinal digestive system, and that how the importance of looking at chronic degenerative disease based on inflammation, things that have accumulated over 30, 40, 50 years. So that's what we're going to cover. There's lots to cover, and I'm very privileged to be able to do this series with you.
Very good. So let's jump into it, because I think that there is a lot to cover. Right. So today's presentation is called Food for Higher Consciousness.
Correct.
Wow. That's something that impresses me, because never before I thought that food can impact our consciousness. How is it doing?
Well,
how does it work?
Well, I think that I was so blessed to be able to take yoga with Dr. Madden Bally here in Montreal. And through a lot of meditation and work with him, I began to realize that the foods really have a connection with how I can connect with my higher power or my spirit guide. So I thought that breaking this down, how do we get to where we are? And so that's the kind of journey I would like to take you on today. We are loved. We have a divine love that comes to us. And this divine love in spirit provided us with some of the most magnificent blessings of fruits and vegetables to be able to take in that allow us to really develop to our potential. And so I have done a lot of research, and we begin to look at the scientific research now, looking at food and food choices, begin to say, yeah, well, 3,000 years ago, they knew that, and now we can prove it with scientific research. So what our ancient ancestors knew just by observing, by being in tune with themselves, mindfully eating, which we've gotten away from, our current research is demonstrating, yeah, that's right. Those foods do have that property, and they are powerful. Well, let's just take a look at the things that really, really impacted man from the very beginning. The things that were worshipped, the things that were admired, the things that they sought. They sought as they moved around to find water so that they could sustain their life. They needed the soils, the foods that were there. Fire. Once they were able to control fire, they were able then to modify those foods and cook them and prepare them. And of course, air, they realized early on that those four elements were key to the human being sustained during those years. So primitive man really focused on survival food, and their whole purpose for existing was to survive. So they moved, they picked up their branches and moved. They had a nomadic type of culture. They had to do that. And that was for their survival, whether they were hunters or gatherers. They had to be both. They hunted when they could. They gathered. They ate seeds and weeds and nuts and fruits and all the roots, all of the good things that they needed to survive. And so the food at that stage of our existence as humanity was survival. We really were looking at that. And many of those early cultures, we look at the archaeological digs, we see that they blessed the food. There were rituals around the food.
Oh,
they
really?
honored the spirit of the food. They recognized there was divine in the spirit of the bear, or there was divine in that root of ginger. Their early rituals honored food, and we're so far away from that in today's world. And so it's bringing back in that awareness of the divinity, the spirit of those early cultures that recognized that there was divinity in the foods that they were consuming here on planet Earth.
What is the added value for them to do that? What did it brought to them as opposed as not doing it?
I don't know. It's a phenomenon that we can observe through seeing in their traces of their cultures that they have left behind, that this was very important. A part of their, once they had gathered, once they had hunted, that they were able to honor that and not just mindlessly eat, that because survival of early cultures was critical before they became more sedentary, more stabilized, where they started the early agricultural cultures. And we look at nutrition in the ancient cultures. We'll take a look at that as we go forward. And then our challenges today for clearing the pathways to enlightenment, because our industrial foods, our water resources, the things that have come in that are blocking that pathway to enlightenment for so many. We know that our early ancestors, their patterns, they had settlements near water sources. When that water source dried up, they moved on. They were a hunter-gatherer group. They relied on the nutrients in their nearby area of roots and fruits, greens and beans, seeds and weeds, and wild game and fish. So they were very connected. There was no food processing. They were the ones that cooked it, cut it, hunted it, gathered it, preserved it, dried it. They were the food processors, and they honored each step of the way, which is a very important part of that early nutritional patterns. And when we look back at some of the various practices, I just thought this was to keep the body in good health is a duty. And I think we've forgotten that. This is a gift. This is the only body I have been given. And it is my gift that I need to take care of. Those gift packages I got at Christmas under the Christmas tree were important, and I took care of them. Why would I not take care of this gift of my body? Because otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our mind strong and clear. So when we look at some of the traditions, and I just pulled out, there are similarities and differences in this list. Both Confucius and Buddha would say, we need to eat foods that are fresh. And we need to be happy and joyful in the preparation and gathering of those fresh foods. That instead of saying, oh, I got to go and pick the tomatoes, or oh, I got to go pick the strawberries, be happy. I am so happy that I'm able to have the opportunity to pick these fresh strawberries. And so looking at fresh, happy, and during that process of gathering, looking at things that are, Confucius would say, colorful, eating a lot of different colors, and clean foods, meaning they're clean, they're not contaminated in any way. And they were concerned about healthy washing and cleanliness during those very early times. They understood at a level that things needed to be washed and cleaned. And again, prepared with joy. So you see them happy when you're preparing foods. The diet in those days, based on fruits and vegetables, they had some meats, and I put that in another color because I thought it's very interesting that both messages were some animal product. The main feature, as we have adopted in the last, I would say since about the 1930s and 40s, we've adopted meat as the main feature on a plate or in a diet. And here they're saying these are just some things that may be it was used as a condiment. Meat was so rare, it just was used to flavor foods. Right. You had a little bit and it was used to flavor. Basically, some of the real, in any group or any philosophy, you have a spectrum. So you have some people that would not have meat at all. The yellow would be completely out. They would be considered vegan. And I think that the resurgence of this is a heightened awareness. The sad part about how our world thinks, the food manufacturers said, uh-oh, we're going to lose a whole bunch of people. So now we have to package a lot of vegan products, gluten-free, all of that. And some of those, when I go to the store and look at that, are awful. And we're finding that people that have been declaring themselves vegan are eating poorly. Fast food mode. The ultimate fast food is a fresh piece of fruit, a fresh banana, apple, orange, pineapple, you name it. But yes, you can get all the amino acids that you need, proteins that you need, being completely vegan. And understanding what does that mean. Some young clients, and often young women, will declare 13, 14, 15. They like to, in the Western culture here, want to bug their parents and take control, and they declare themselves vegan. So they eat beige, that's what I say. They eat toast in the morning, peanut butter, and a coffee. Then they'll have French fries, a Coke, and some ketchup, maybe some hummus, and rice crackers. And they are vegan, but they're not eating healthy. So that's the key, is to be able, you take on that responsibility of being a vegan, you take on a big responsibility to be mindful that the food manufacturers are out to get you, just like they're out to get the non-vegan.
Right.
So be very, very mindful. And that's what this series is all about. So what I had done in this research of my own, in putting together a series of lectures, is looking at what were really important in both of those. That I found fresh ginger before meals. You go into a health food store here in the West, and they got ginger capsules. Have a ginger capsule before each meal will help with this digestion. So again, the people have jumped on the bandwagon. Good thing to have in your pantry is good hunk of ginger root at all times. It helps with starting out in the morning. I didn't have one at lunch, but so it becomes a part of your life. I grew up in the Midwest in the United States. Ginger, my grandmother kept it in the pantry. It was a very special thing. And when you got sick, you got grandma's very special tea made with fresh ginger. So, I mean, here's Confucius 3,000, 4,000 years ago saying this is important. And we're beginning to see that it truly is. So this gives you a bit of a insight into what things were considered important. And I found this interesting with the Buddhists, the onions, garlic, leek, chives were forbidden. And we know there are a lot of great nutritional value in that whole alum family of foods. So I'm not saying that they were all perfect. And it would be interesting to find out why. Was it because of how they were grown? Were they not able to keep them clean? I'm not sure. That I cannot say for sure. That's not in today's. I'm looking at ancient.
Because today I live in a Buddhist country over here, and there is plenty of teas, right?
Yes.
As well as plenty of ginger.
Right. So that just gives you an idea of how man has moved through and honored food, or became aware of the importance of food. And so from the Western perspective, I looked at what Plato had to say about food, and we've all heard about Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine. And from this is that I was really, really impressed to find out that Plato believed that eating food that's least harmful to the environment at that time was concerned about the environment. And it really sort of like blew my mind. I thought, wow, what do they have to worry about? The one thing I really love is that he said eating is a conscious act. And I am so saddened that eating is almost an unconscious act. Mm-hmm. That you smell something, you're in the airport and the Cinnabon, and the next thing you are, and they do that on purpose, you're grabbing one of those sticky gooey buns that you shouldn't be having, because the marketers want us to make eating an unconscious act. So Plato says eating is a conscious act, and we need to get back to that mindful, conscious act of eating. And he also, in his philosophy, felt that meats and sweets and wine were to be used in special occasions. And I remember reading and looking at that, and I thought, wow, even when I grew up, and even though I grew up on a farm in the Midwest US, that's true. We during the summer months, a lunch could have been just salad and corn and some beans and peas. So I never felt deprived. I felt always, but the meat was something special on occasion on the weekend, or maybe someone were coming over for dinner. As sweets, now, you know, you just walk by the cupcake place and jump in and get a cupcake. Sweets are not used for special occasions. They're an everyday carrying on. Plato also felt, and I find this interesting from the Western perspective, that we should have periods of fasting.
Wow.
Both of them felt that this was important. And we do know that we must fast every day from 8 or 9 o'clock at night when we go to bed through till 6 or 7 in the morning. We need to not be taking in food for at least a 10-hour period every day. Now, if you work a night shift, then you figure out what 10-hour period will you keep your body allowing it just to have water, just to be able to manage the food that you took in.
To flush out the toxins, maybe also.
Yes, to clean that. Yeah. I found it interesting if you look at what we've discovered about Hippocrates. Of course, he said, let food be thy medicine. And he also said the next doctors will prescribe food. And he believed the body has the power to heal itself if you gave it the right food. And Francois, you know, as a quantum healer, if you give the body the right foods and allow it to be open to alternative, it can heal itself.
Of course.
It's opening it up. So the body has that impact. He also, Hippocrates, realized that in the city areas that the people were sick that lived along open sewers. So he had done some of the, was interesting, and I got off onto a tangent reading some of what he had to talk about the way cities were built, because you had to think about public health, which I thought, wow, was very interesting. And he also felt exercise contributed to health, and we have modern science that shows that nitric oxide is what we produce when we exercise, and that's what really helps us take advantage of the good food we take in. So these ancient messages are there, that it's just not something new that modern man has found out. Modern man has, through this exercise, we look at some of the research done by a Nobel Prize winner, talks about that. So the things that Hippocrates' philosophy, based on observation, not micro testing, observation, these are the things that they observed and felt were important.
Wow. That's something very, very, very inspiring. Now the scriptures, the divine love for man.
Yes. Whatever your way of connecting with our higher power. All of us know that this divine spirit, love, is full of love for man on this planet. I imagine the divine spirit weeping for us at this point in time with the COVID and how we're coping and not coping. And so there are messages about food that are coming to us. In Corinthians, I think this is powerful. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's spirit dwells within you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. We all hold that spirit, and how we hold it, can we access it? Are we able to tune into it? And my thoughts are that with food, it can help us take care of the physicality of this temple, but it can also help us access the spirit that dwells within that temple.
So I
And
start to understand your topic now, the spirituality of food.
yes. And Ezekiel says, as you take wheat, barley, beans, lentils, and put them in a vessel, you can make your bread from them. And of course, the commercial people make Ezekiel bread, and you can go and buy it in the store. But the message being that on earth, we were given all the plants and the foods that we can use to help us take care of the temple, the house of our soul. So the message really says we need things that are natural, fresh, unprocessed, clean, meaning clean from chemicals, artificial colorings, preservatives, clean, and that it's primarily plant-based.
Plant-based, of course.
So we're looking at those, when we look at whether it's coming from Confucius or Buddha or Hippocrates or Plato, when you look at it, they're all saying you need natural, fresh, unprocessed, clean, and primarily plant-based. So today, those of you that are listening to this, we're making food choices basically on several things. We'll look at what is our ethnic background, what are, for example, I live with someone that's from a Chinese Venezuelan background. Her food choices are based on where she came from, her community and her geography. You may be making food choices based on ethical concerns. Did they use child labor to harvest this? Was that tea? We look at all those various food movements, looking at how are the foods harvested and brought to us. We make food choices based on how we've been bombarded by the media and advertising. They come in and really play a number on us, especially with young children. I remember my children in the morning, they would watch the cartoons on Saturday. That was a treat. And the next thing I knew, they wanted Pop-Tarts. The media had gotten to them so powerfully. I was in a home the other day, and in their pantry, they had these things called Fruit Loops. It's not even called Froots. There's not a piece of fruit in there, but the media and advertising, people are making choices based on all of that. Sometimes your food choices are based on your personal health. For example, I know that beans and lentils There are researchers and people that'll say, oh, you can't have beans and lentils, they're not good for your health. But we do know that there's a huge amount of the population that is their only source of protein and has been for thousands of years, and they're doing well. Some people say, well, I get really gassy when I have that, and so I can't have it. So they allow things that happen to them, their personal health, to drive their food choices. But they can go and have a hamburger. That won't give them gas, but the good stuff will. And there's a reason for that, but we're not ready to explore the reason. Gas means your body is trying to get rid of toxins. It's saying, whew, I'm being freed. I'm being liberated. It's going out. But it's, we're in a culture where passing gas is just awful. You shouldn't do that. So personal health comes into play when we're making choices. We forget that, what do I need for my body? Time. I don't know about everyone on the planet if time is a factor. We don't take time. We don't say the dinner hour will consume X number of minutes. The preparation, the thankfulness, the mindfulness, the social time that's gathered when we break bread with someone else. So that time gets shortened and shortened and shortened. And that's why people say, oh, I don't have time to eat. I didn't have time to eat lunch. I didn't have time to have breakfast. So the time for food has shrunk. Therefore, people are making choices based on time. Then, of course, we've got a whole new disorder, now mental disorders in the DSM, the diagnostic for mental health, relationship with food. What is your relationship with food? And if you have good memories, you might have a tendency. I have a cup of green tea and I'm right back into my grandmother's kitchen. The smell of it, the texture of it, the taste of it. And so that I have a positive relationship with that because of the memory of it. Some people eat food because they're lonely. Some eat food because they're anxious and nervous. So how are you using food? And I already touched about community and geography.
Yeah.
And there's a certain amount of our Greta, our beautiful little 16-year-old from the Scandinavian country, really concerned about the planetary and global issues around row farming and the huge carbon footprint that those big tractors and big pharma, we not only have big pharma as pharmaceutical firms, we have big pharma in terms of the industrial farms that are all over the world. And so you may make your food choices consciously based on where you stand on that. These are how we end up making decisions about the food we eat. Mashed potatoes just seem to be a big part of my community and geography of where I grew up. And so it's my comfort zone. It's what we're used to. And I'm really so interested in looking at foods from different cultures. As you were saying, your ideology may impact that. This was an excellent review that came out about 20 years ago in A Diet for New America. I showed it to my grandchildren when they were 7 and 9 years old. My daughter thought it was awful, but it was important. This is another great read, Diet for a Small Planet. So, and this, we talked about how the media really impacts. I remember going to Europe and seeing my first McDonald's sign. But when I was there in 1958, it wasn't there. But when I was there in 83, they were everywhere.
Mm.
So media and advertisement has gotten to us. Some of the things that is coming in to play, and it's something that I would suggest that people do, is begin to look at their personal health and what your daily food log is like. And if you would like, I could forward this one too. I hadn't thought about it. Just to make you conscious of what did I eat yesterday and what am I eating today. And one of the other things that impacts is if you're on medication, they will tell you, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this, don't eat that. And that impacts how you make a food choice. And I said time is an issue, eating at your desk, not taking the time to eat. What's your relationship with food? As a young kid, if this is what you ate, or strawberries, that's going to impact your geographical and the community that you're from will impact your food choices. And then if you're really concerned about the planet, big pharma and the destruction that all that does to our planet, so that we can grow food where there are famine and the global issues where there used to be fertile fields, because we've got this going on, then we can drop bags of wheat so that we can feel good about ourselves feeding them. So it's just a strange cycle that we have going on. So what I'd like to sort of focus on is that making healthy food choices today are based on some of those traditional messages that we looked at from Plato, from Hippocrates, from Confucius. And now our science and research is beginning to say, yeah, that does make sense. There are properties in ginger. Oh, and turmeric. Oh my goodness, it's the miracle spice. And where you're living, Francois, they've known that for centuries. So science, it's like Western, we need to have bum, bum, bum. We need to prove it to me by the science, and science is beginning to come around and look at some of these
which is good.
areas.
Which is good.
Yes.